Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream for Civilization VII. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Sean Wilson. I am the Associate QA Lead here at Firaxis. And today I am joined by Ed Beach, our Creative Director. Ed, wonderful having you here.
Welcome everybody. This really exciting day. We're very, very close to launch now. This is our last live stream before launch. We have some really cool, exciting things that we're going to be showing today. I'll let you introduce the other guests that we have here, and then we can talk about that.
All right, awesome. Thank you, thank you. Additionally, we have one of our designers here today. We have Tim Fleming, who will be joining us for today's live stream.
Hello. Yeah, I've been at Firaxis for a while now, but this is the first Civ game I've been able to work on, so I'm very excited about that, as we are very close to having everybody be able to play. And I've mostly been working on pacing and progression type things up until now, and in the future I'll be helping to work on a lot of the free updates and new things that are coming down the pipe.
And just in case anyone doesn't really understand what pacing and progression means, but we threw some really nasty problems Tim's way with this design. We had the game broken up into chapters, or 3 ages, and trying to make it so that the empires sort of reached a certain power at the end of the age so they could do everything they needed to finish off that age, but then they came into the next stage at an appropriate power level, so they were either not too slingshotted ahead of the other civs, but they were also had some good recognition for what they'd accomplished in the previous age. That was a really tricky problem. So Tim helped us out a ton. We had a whole group of designers that were working on those types of problems. And we're really happy with where that is going into Civ VII launch.
I remember the QA team and us, we were getting a lot of those numbers together for y'all, delivering those with the saves and such. So.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a cross-disciplinary team where we get a bunch of designers, we get some AI engineers to make sure that the AI is keeping up with it, and the input from the QA and even some of the tracking and telemetry kind of data that we get is invaluable to make all that come together.
Yeah. All right, so Ed, why don't you go ahead and let us know about all the cool stuff we got going on today for the live stream?
So this live stream is a little bit different than our previous 3. The previous 3 were really focusing on ages and how ages work and what the gameplay is in those ages. This time, we're again looking at a new part of the game, but it's the very, very end. We are looking at how you win a victory, what it means to finish off a Civ VII game, but we're going to add a twist to it. Most people are going to probably experience these victories for the first time in a single-player game, but this is in a multiplayer game. So Tim and I will be playing head-to-head, and we'll be looking at what's Tim's path to victory, what's my path to victory. They'll be a little bit different from each other, so we'll really be able to give people a big comfort level with what victories are all about and how they work. However, once we're done that multiplayer showdown, which we have no idea how it's going to come out because we've practiced the beginning of it, but we have no idea what the final result's going to be. So that's going to be very interesting. But after that, we have a whole segment where we want to talk about what our community can expect after our game launches, what we're going to be doing for post-release support, how, like Tim was talking about, he's going to be helping organize and get our team in place to get all those post-release updates out to everybody. But we also have additional content drops and free updates to people, and we want to run through all that and how that's going to work with everybody.
Awesome, very exciting stuff. Now, before we go ahead and start looking at setting up a multiplayer game, I want to give a shout out to the collector's edition of the game. This is an awesome option for fans who are really into merchandise and collectors. There's a whole bunch of cool things that you can keep and hold on to and show off to your friends. So don't miss your opportunity to check that out. All right, now let's go ahead and look at how we are actually going to be setting up a multiplayer game.
So this is a segment that we decided to add to this live stream because we did not show a multiplayer game in a previous live stream, and even though there have been a lot of creators who are giving previews of Civilization VII, and our fans have seen a lot of that information by now, there hasn't been a lot of focus on what are your options with a multiplayer game. How can you set it up? Can I play just one age, and how would that work? And what can I turn on? What can I turn off? So we wanted to run through that, and so that's what we're going to do over the next couple minutes, just to give people an idea of how you would get into a game like the one Tim and I are going to be playing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the avatar. My player, I'm called 𝐂𝐤𝐯 here, which is kind of fun. But just as a reminder to players that we have added a whole meta progression system, and there's lots of things that you can unlock as you're playing the game, and you can show that off to some of the other people you're going to be playing online with through this customize feature. So customize will allow you to select a badge based on things that you've unlocked through playing the games. That goes in with your banner, which are one of these cool backdrops, and you can continue to customize it just to make sure that when you show up for a multiplayer game, you kind of get to add a little bit of your own flair to it. So we're not going to specifically set it up and worry about all that right now, but I just wanted to point out to people that that's one of the cool new features that they'll see with Civ VII multiplayer.
Very cool. I'm excited to see all the cards everybody gets to make.
So now let's go to the Create Games screen. This is how you set up any multiplayer game. It'll be familiar to people who played Civ V and Civ VI multiplayer, but there are a few important new changes that we wanted to highlight. The number one change is that now you select an age as one of the primary things that you do setting up a game. And we'll make this look kind of like the way this game that Tim and I are going to be playing was set up. So I'll select Modern here as the age that we're going to start in. That'll be an advanced start into Modern, where you get a certain area of the map allocated to you. You get to place your cities as you like to place those cities, and you're off and running as soon as the game starts. The turn timer is again present with us, just like it has been in previous games. We recommend always setting that to keep your pace going. And you have options like you have in previous Civ titles for difficulty, game speed. We're going to be playing at quick speed today, which isn't the very fastest speed. That's online, but it is faster than a standard game goes on. And that's sort of our default for any kind of multiplayer games. It does enhance the speed of play compared to a regular game and seems very comfortable for multiplayer, but some people might want to go even faster with like an online speed in some of their games. Continents Plus and small map size are the default settings. We actually chose a tiny map for this game because we just wanted for the live stream to simplify it down a little bit. So we have 2 human players, 2 AI players that you'll see once we get into the game. And then the final selections are sort of very specific to Civ VII. A lot of these are pretty new. So for instance, the mementos that you can get through meta progression, those can be turned on or off. We're going to turn those off for our game. The crisis system that Tim was the sort of designer leading the charge on that. That was an important part of setting up our pacing at the end of an age and how those worked out. That can be turned off for multiplayer. If you are doing a single age multiplayer game, we actually do recommend probably turning it off. Usually you get enough mayhem from the other humans in your game that you don't need the crisis as well. So this is a look at exactly how we would set up a multiplayer game, what types of options you have. And we're really excited for the potential for multiplayer here in Civ VII. We'll be showing you how much fun like a modern age-specific game is here in our stream today. So we are quite interested to see how the community adopts this new format for multiplayer and takes it and runs with it.
Very exciting. So before we actually hop into the game, because the game is going to be showing us some new content, we got a video for y'all to check out.
Die erste Bürgerpflicht ist, seinem Vaterland.
Friedrich the Great was a complex figure who combined a sharp military mind with a deep appreciation for culture and philosophy. Which is why he arrives with 2 personas to capture this surprising dichotomy. Will you build your empire on cold hard logic, or embrace the refined tastes of a Renaissance man? As the oblique persona, Friedrich gets a tactical head start with powerful army commanders and infantry support for each technology investment he makes. As the Baroque persona, besides an incredible fit, Friedrich advances his cultural legacy through might and becomes even mightier as his cultural patronage grows. Consider pairing Friedrich with Prussia in the modern age to get big combat bonuses for being antisocial. Because who needs friends anyway? Or choose a different path all your own. But whatever you build, remember to build something you believe in.
All right, very cool. So our new leader, Frederick. So Ed, how about you tell me a little bit about why you selected Frederick as a leader for Civ VII?
So Frederick the Great is one of the greatest military strategists of all time. He's been in Civilization before, but for Civ V and VI, we went for different directions. So we were, looking for leaders from Central Europe, like we always do. And this particular time, with our age system, we've set it up so we now are focused in on a lot of what's going on in the 19th century, Napoleonic Wars time period, and leading on into the World Wars. That's sort of the brackets for how the modern age is set up. And we decided that to represent Germany during that time period, we would go with a Prussia Civ, which would be sort of a unique opportunity. We've never had Prussia as a specific Civ in our game before. So once we decided that Prussia was going to be in, it sort of made sense that this was the time Frederick should make his comeback. He hasn't been around since Civ IV, but he's certainly a popular figure. As you can see, he's got two personas. So there's also a cultural side to him as well as the military genius side to him. So he worked really well with our persona system, and lo and behold, we decided, yep, we had to have Frederick.
Very cool. And yeah, you're going to be playing Frederick and Prussia in this game. And so do you have a little bit of a strategy on what you're going to be looking at?
Okay, so if we can look at the game that we have set up here, I'm on the northern end of our eastern landmass. I have only 2 cities at the moment, but some of these towns are very big, and so they can easily be turned into cities at a nominal cost because they have such high populations. So I may be doing that here and there. So the first thing I do, especially in this situation where you and your QA staff have put together a really engaging situation, and we're trying to figure out how to push forward in this game and how I'm going to defeat Tim here, is I have to look at the 4 different legacy paths and figure out which one is going to be the most sensible way for me to try to get a victory in here. So we'll take a quick look over at where we are in age progress. We'll see that we're doing really well on the Railroad Tycoon economic path. We're 2/3, 3/4 of the way done that one. But the other paths, we have more distance to go. And if we go into the age ranking screen and look at specifically Railroad Tycoon points, we've earned 357 out of 500. Now, just to remind people how those are earned, you get a Railroad Tycoon point each turn for each resource that is slotted into one of your factories and is being sort of produced into a factory finished good. So if I go to my resource screen, I can count up how many resources I have in factories. I have in Berlin a tea factory and 3 tea resources there. In Dresden, I have a fish factory and 5 fish slotted there, but notice I have another fish I could move in there if I wanted to. And then I have a chocolate factory in Hamburg. So all in all, at the moment, I am earning 11 points per turn. I'm within about 15 turns or less of being able to get to victory here. Now, once that's not a victory as in the game is over, I am within 15 turns of unlocking a victory condition. And that's different in Civ VII because you try to progress through the legacy path, and then there's this capstone moment that you have to go out and do something dramatic to win the game. We have a dev diary coming out later today talking about victories, so people can read all about that, but we'll be explaining that in the stream here as we go. So the economic legacy path, when I finish that, my next step is to establish the World Bank. I have to get a great banker. He has to travel around to the different capital cities. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of that. But anyways, I think this is my strongest path. So basically, I just have to survive about 20 turns, and then I should be okay. But Tim's got some interesting ways he can win, and that's going to be a big challenge.
So awesome. Thank you very much, Ed. So now getting into Tim's gameplay. Tim, you're going to be playing Napoleon of France. So let's hear a little bit about that combo and what your strategy is going to be going into this.
Right, so I have Napoleon, I have the revolutionary persona, which is a nice combination of culture and military. And France as well is like a very strong culture civilization, but they have some very strong, unique militaristic bonuses like this Garde Imperiale unique unit, which is both a melee unit and a ranged unit. So it's very strong to be able to do ranged attacks without taking reciprocal damage, and still being able to sort of fix bayonets and get stuck in if I need to, and not be very vulnerable. So they're very flexible, very good military unit. And I have my unique quarter up here as well, which is giving me a lot of culture and happiness. So you might be thinking that I'm going for a culture victory, but actually, I'm going to take all of that culture and happiness and slingshot it into a military ideology victory path.
Very cool.
Where, you can go through this by conquering without a sort of cultural component to this, but if you use your culture to access your ideology and then attack your ideological opponents, you'll go up this much, much faster. So it's 3 points if I capture a settlement of someone with an opposing ideology. So I really only need 4 or 5 more settlements here of somebody who is opposing me to get to the end of this. And that has a capstone, which will involve building the Manhattan Project and Operation Ivy ultimately, and therefore establishing that I have, complete military dominance as the sort of world's sole nuclear power at that point, sort of mirroring the United States at the end of World War II. So to that end, I've got lots of military units over here. My ideology is fascism. I'm the only fascist in the world, so everybody kind of hates me, as they should. And but that gives me a lot of targets, and we've selected Jose here, the Jerez himself of Mexico, as my target. And so if I can take out a good chunk of his settlements here, that will get me on a nuclear trajectory pretty
Very
quickly.
cool. And now I believe there's even a little bit of history between Napoleon and Frederick. So
Right. Yeah, this is a classic showdown. The French Empire and the Prussian Empire, the Franco-Prussian conflicts here, and I believe Napoleon even said at one point, that he never would have conquered Europe or wouldn't have made it as deep in if Frederick the Great was still alive during his time. So I guess maybe we'll find out if that was true
we
or
can
not.
put that to the test.
Yep.
So-
It's going to be a great what-if moment from history reenacted right here in our live stream.
Right, but Napoleon didn't have nukes, and hopefully I will. So maybe that'll help.
All right, so let's take a moment to address some questions from 𝐂𝐢𝐯 𝐒𝐿. Do you just play through a specific age, or are you able to play through an entire 3-age campaign in multiplayer?
So you can do either one. I think if you're just organizing games out on the internet, with not necessarily with your friends, it's going to be more likely to be just a single-age game that you'll set up and play through. But if you've got a friend group that can, play, either a whole bunch one weekend or over successive weekends, absolutely you can set up that multiplayer campaign. So you'll play through Antiquity, a save game will be created at the end of that, and then that can be loaded in and can be the start of your next session when you go into the Exploration Age. There have been some questions about who gets to choose their civilization in the next age first, if you are doing one of those linked campaigns. And our answer to that is, every group's going to have their own preferences. Some groups might decide, whoever's in first place absolutely gets to pick, whoever scored the most legacy points. Some people might want to help somebody catch up. Some people might want to stick by specific Civ Unlock rules that either their group has set up or that the game has. So we don't really dictate that. It's up to players to choose as they are in the lobby setting up to launch into the exploration game.
Very cool, awesome. Also, shout out to I believe it was KD Magic for KN Magic 7 for the compliment on my hair. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the game a bit more here. So, you are currently going fully engaged into the battle over here at Mexico. Tell us a little bit about the unit setup you got here.
Right, so I have my Guard Imperial. They are attacking these fortified settlements with their ranged attacks. It's not doing a ton of damage because of the fortifications, ranged units attacking units that are in fortifications or which have dug in with fortifications are less effective. So I really need these siege units to break down these walls, but as you kind of see, this navigable river is really making a problem. It's actually sandwiched in between two navigable rivers, which is making it very difficult for me to approach by land. And it's something that especially in the modern age, once these modern cities get rather large, you really need like a combined arms approach to attack these things. So I'm using my navy here from offshore, and I especially have this fleet commander here, which has got this bombardment tree stacked full of great, especially the splash damage bonuses for attacking from the sea to land. I don't really have an air force set up here, but Jose does, so that's not great for me. I'm a little bit technologically behind everybody else, so that's kind of my Achilles heel here. If I could, I would really love to have some air units over here, but I don't. But over here, where I am going to be in much more of a defensive posture against a technologically superior Prussia, I really want to build out my air force as fast as I can so I don't not at too big of a disadvantage.
Very cool, awesome. Now, Ed, how do you feel about what seems to be a good friend of yours getting invaded right now and that threat off of your southern border?
It's absolutely something that I need to pay a lot of attention to because, like Tim was pointing out, I think if he takes 5 settlements here, it's pretty much game over. He's been threatening to nuke me if he gets deep in the military legacy path. So basically, I feel like I'm at one of those carnival games where it's the dunking booth, and like I'm sitting perched on a chair precariously, and if Tim does well, I'm going in the water because I'm going to get nuked. So that's a little bit of an uncomfortable place to be, but hopefully. I did just tweak my factories a little bit while Tim was talking about his military. Hopefully he wasn't paying attention to me admitting that. So I actually think I can maybe do a little bit better than 20 turns in terms of how long it's going to take me to finish the Railroad Tycoon path. I do have several squadron commanders that are filling up with my air units, and Prussia does have a unique Stuka air unit, which is a great ground attack aircraft, one of the new types of aircraft that we showed off in the modern live stream last time. So overall, cautiously optimistic. We'll see how this goes.
Very cool. So while talking about aircraft a little bit, and you were mentioning you might want some, and because Jose is really using that as an advantage, show us how some of that aircraft combat's going to be able to work out or work against you.
Right, like you just saw Jose destroy one of my artillery pieces here that I really need to get these walls down with his air attacks, so that's not great for me. I'm building my biplanes over here as much as possible. The modern age fighter units are sort of sectioned out into fighter-style air units, ground attack air units, and siege air units, like these bombers. And they really are specialized in different roles. You can use them against other things, but these fighter air units are really good at fighting other air units. Ground attack units are good at attacking ground and sea units, and the bombers are really what you want to use against cities. I'm not really looking to go on the offensive in the air over here against what are going to be definitely, and Prussia has a unique plane as well that I need to watch out for. So I'm loading up on fighters, and even hopefully biplanes will get the job done. I don't think I'm going to make it to a better air unit before he gets into his economic victory. So I'm on the clock there.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like there's a real rock, paper, scissors to air combat in,
Absolutely.
in Civ 7.
Yep.
So we're going to go ahead and go for another question. Garrett Kidd is asking about when setting up, when in a multiplayer game in your age transition and you select the new civs. We went into that a little bit, but who gets to select the civs first, and how does that interact with the associated civs that you unlock?
So, like I was explaining, ultimately, if the community has one way that they like to do this and they want us to enforce it in the game, we're happy to go ahead and put those rules in the game. But we thought it was more sensible, especially, we've always made it so that multiplayer communities can kind of develop their own ecosystem for like how they do balance patches to tweak the civs so that they're better set up for multiplayer, how they, make rules for choosing who gets to play which civs, like if they're having a tournament. Those kind of things get very specialized and are very curated by those different multiplayer communities. And we didn't want to over-specify that within our game. So for right now, it really is up to each group to decide what order they want to allow civs to be picked, even if you're rolling from one age to another.
Very cool. So now getting back into the game, Ed, how's the economic scaling looking?
So we've only finished one full turn, so it hasn't progressed, tremendously. But I have slipped a few more factory resources in there. I was able to set it up so I have a full 6 fish in the Dresden factory, and I was able to add another factory in 𝐂𝐤𝐯.
Ooh, nice orange factory.
Yes, we're getting, which helps us in producing naval units, and that's something I'm probably going to start doing in Dresden.
With the chocolate factory, we actually got lucky enough to go see the chocolate museum in
Cologne.
Cologne, yeah, which was very, very cool. Getting to see
here
that.
the chocolate factory is in Hamburg, but yes, there is one in Cologne.
So that was very cool. And
part of our Gamescom trip last summer.
Ooh, so it's sounding a lot like Tim is winning the YouTube poll, 51% to 49%.
Ooh, I like this
So
odds.
Tim, how do you feel about that?
I like this. I feel like I should be spotted some beneficial odds here, but I do need to protect my airfields here, because I'm really not looking to go to war with Ed just at this moment when I don't have any nukes or anything. But it's multiplayer. You can't do the same things you would do in single player. A human player is always going to be a much more unpredictable opponent. So he could certainly end up at war over here before we're really ready.
And Ed, do you think you're going to be able to prove the fan base wrong on that opinion?
Well, I've done so once in my first matchup with Carl, but the second matchup with Carl did not go particularly well. So, yeah, that 50-50 track record I have is probably reflected in the odds here. Tim is actually much stronger player of the game in general. He's constantly stressing our game and making sure that the AI is set up to handle players who can play at that Immortal or DID level. I'm definitely a tier behind that, but I do feel like you're set up in terms of giving me the heads up to sort of have the clock ticking towards the economic victory. I sort of do have the advantage going here in terms of a better setup, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I had got the opportunity, shout out to our coworker in QA, David Feldman, who helped me put this save together, but we were both getting to kind of play head to head and get the advantage to get the game set up, and I got a really good one there for the econ. Let's just say you guys are lucky I'm not in this game. So that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I will say I'm not looking to take Ed head on and invade deep into here, because I know from his economic victory progress that he's got a really strong rail network, and that rail network has a lot of economic bonuses, but it has military bonuses too. He's going to be able to move his troops around very rapidly along that rail network.
An example of that is I have this Hussar in Berlin. I moved him one to the southeast. I can now do move by rail, and I can put him right up in the front lines where I want. Actually, Misclicked there.
Did you click the Explorer?
Yeah, I clicked on top of it.
Get in the front lines, Explorer.
Yeah, but so now, boom, he's teleported right there. I've actually brought an army forward. The best army commander I have is this army commander with 7 promotions.
Oh, very
He's
strong.
got the extra command radius. He's been through the assault tree. So wherever he is probably my sort of attack vector south. So hopefully Tim's not looking over at my screen to see exactly where he is, but it's right there. So
Sound barrier right here.
yeah, exactly.
All right, we got a question from Juno Dude 456. Will players be able to play DLC civs and leaders if one player has them in the game, or if one player wouldn't own those?
That's
civs?
an excellent question, and the answer is, if you own the DLC civs and leaders, they are selectable in the multiplayer setup for you, and so they can go into a game even if you're playing against people who don't own those same civs and leaders. The other players that are jumping in the game that have not yet purchased those civs and leaders won't have them selectable, but they can play against them, see how they play, decide whether they like them, that kind of thing.
Very cool. Now, let's take a look at the next front over here in Mexico. How's that going? Are the walls beginning to come down?
Yeah, slowly. I was, navigable rivers, we've revealed them pretty early on, and people have seen that they're in the game, but it's hard to overstate how big of an impact they make in so many ways. This is a really tough nut to crack here between these 2 navigable rivers by land, because if I'm attacking from while embarked on this, it's an amphibious assault, and that's got some real penalties. Oh no. So I really need to try to get in here as quickly as possible. What I don't want to have happen, that can happen, especially in modern, is with some of these larger cities, is get bogged down in urban warfare in sort of a Stalingrad-esque situation. That can be tough. So I want to...
Now, you have some powerful naval ships there. Are you able to sail up those navigable rivers, and is that able to help you out?
I am, and they are using that to my advantage. This fleet commander here, I'm using my coordinated order here to start cracking at these walls and sailing in, and that'll cut off reinforcements from this direction as well.
Very cool.
One thing I am speculating on is what I want to do with my 307 influence. I'm kind of past the point where we're playing nice here. I really want to spend that influence to support one of these war efforts. But am I going to be in a war soon? Yeah, I might want to save some of it for that. But the one thing I can do is I can send 𝐂𝐲 𝐒𝐿 some war support by spending influence towards that. And that will, right now, the overall sentiment in the world is that Napoleon has a little bit more of the popular support. But if I could throw my 121 influence into supporting 𝐂𝐲 𝐒𝐿, that will even that out. And so the +1 combat bonus that Tim's been enjoying for the last couple turns will get wiped away.
So
now, it means that there's less for me to spend on myself if I get into a war, but we'll have to deal with that when we get there.
But now there's more ways to support wars from outside of just using military or gold.
Right.
You can help support
and
through.
there is a limit to only on those third-party wars. You can only once add a support level, so I couldn't do that again. But I might as well get that in there and get the first level of support for any war is always cheaper than later additions of more support because the cost escalates. So spend that's a pretty modest spend to give 𝐂𝐲 𝐒𝐿 the boost he needs there combat-wise.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling it already.
All right, so another question by Oleg. Will it be possible to turn on fast movement and fast combat for a multiplayer game?
So those are options that we're looking into. We're going to talk at the end of the stream here about some of the additional options that we're going to be prioritizing right after we release. So stay tuned. We will get into things like that later on in the stream.
Very cool. A sneak peek for what's to come.
So I am at a point right now where I'm really feeling like I can't let 𝐂𝐲 𝐒𝐿 undertake the brunt of Tim's attack without doing something to support that. So the most obvious thing for me to do to support it is, since he and I are the only two communists in the game, he is my comrade.
Comrade Jose.
Yes, I think I might make him my comrade in arms and go ahead and ally with him. So if I ally with him, what will happen is the game will immediately let that alliance take place, but then it's going to ask me, are you going to be a true ally, and are you going to join the wars against Jose Rizal's opponents? So basically, an alliance with Jose Rizal right now is going to thrust me into a war with Tim. I'm talking about it very openly in front of it. Tim can hear all this, but he knew this was coming. This is how the whole stream was set up. We knew we needed to do this. You know, that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to form an alliance. He accepts because we have a +90 relationship, so he's very happy with that. And then as soon as I go back out to the game, I get the prompt, an ally is at war. Are you going to support them, or are you going to try to stay neutral? So I'm going to support this, and that's going to put Tim and I at war, which is going to lead to a little conflict right here on our home landmass.
Very cool. So big strats with the politics and war. So there's been a little bit of a sway in the poll. Tim's Tim's fans are sweating, and now you only have 25% support, while 75 is now in favor of Ed as we get into the thick of it with the fight.
Evidently, my propaganda campaign is still working. So.
It's all the influence getting used.
Yeah.
So Tim, how do you feel about this now? The threat has arrived, the declaration of war as the two comrades are united.
Yeah, I feel like I need support. So from in-game and out. So we're gonna add some support to this war, put some pressure on his happiness, and give myself a little bit of a combat bonus. And let's see what these nascent air units that I've been building up can do. Fighters are not great at attacking land units, but they can.
Yeah. And these are the biplane fighter units you were mentioning.
Exactly. The fighter class of air units. But that's all I've really got.
So the fighter units will just be good for when Ed tries to use his bombers and his Stuka.
Right.
And so do you think you'll be wanting to get a couple of the trench fighters or bombers in there, or just keep with the biplanes to keep his under?
At least for right now, I'm pretty afraid of those Stukas. My biplanes will automatically intercept any that try to attack within their intercept range. So I don't have to do anything other than just build biplanes and hold on. Although if more land units start coming in here, then I'll have a problem. Fortunately, Paris, so we mentioned that as I take over settlements in the distant lands in Mexico, I'll advance this path, but that isn't all I have to do. I still have to build the Manhattan Project. So I need to keep a high production city somewhere in here and defend it long enough to get my nukes online. And Paris has quite a bit of production here, and it's pretty well defended. So we might have to do some sort of defense in depth here type of thing and hold on to Paris for as long as I can.
All right, and we got another question, one from K9GM3. Does diplomatic relationships apply between human players as the same they would with AI?
They do, and that's one of the cool things about our system is that we worked real hard to make sure that it was very symmetrical, and there was no like AI works one way and humans work a different way. So for instance, if Tim and I had been playing this game for a long time and we had been very friendly and we'd send each other a lot of diplomatic endeavors so that we were like cooperating on research and exchanging food and gold and those types of things, we would have a very strong relationship. And to break that and to go to war would mean you'd have to declare a surprise war, which would cost you a lot of war support points, give automatic war support to the other side, would inflict war weariness on your people. And then some diplomatic options are easier to undertake or only available if you're friendly with somebody. So all those kind of gates still apply between human players as well.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. So, all right, back to the heat of it. How is this invasion of Mexico City going?
Well, Jose offered peace, and I had to turn him down because he'd be willing to give me 1 or 2 settlements, but I think my path to victory is over here. I can't walk away with fewer than 3 or 4 cities here to get my points that I need, because I don't know that I'm going to be taking any Prussian cities anytime soon here.
Now, it does look like there's still Xerxes, and I believe you're the only fascist civ, so you may be able to still get some points from the Xerxes Mughal down
I
there.
could, yeah. I don't know I'm going to have enough time to pivot quite that hard, but here we can see the French unique ability showing up here where my celebration occurred. And normally you pick your government and you only have 2 options to choose from, but the French unique ability is you can choose any of the options, which is quite nice for me right now because I could really use +3 combat strength right at this exact moment. So that's very convenient, and it gives me a chance to reshuffle my policies here and get some of these fascist specific things in here, like this guy right here, which is going to help me out quite a lot. So these are peacetime policies. We don't need peacetime policies anymore.
It's time to celebrate war.
It's time to bring these fascist policies in. And we can also see that even though this is an advanced start game, I have Spanish and Egyptian policies because even in advanced start, it will generate sort of a historical heritage for your civ. So this particular version of France that I have right now sort of evolved out of Spain, which is interesting. And I'm going to use some of those Spanish policies actually to give me some extra strength.
So this is a really cool opportunity that we get in the later ages where we can see the history being built in layers to not only on the map with unique quarters or improvements you might have built, but even the traditions from your previous civilizations can carry forward into this age, adding so many layers to the gameplay. That was one of my favorite things to be testing when these things were in development. And it's a really cool way to express the story you've been telling over the course of the game.
Yeah, I think we're really excited to see what people do with these sort of different crazy combinations very soon. Very, very soon. We'll see what everybody is able to come up with.
Yeah. Alrighty, going to another question by Brew Wind. Does the AI know how to use the war support system?
Yes. Yes, they do.
Yes. So expect them to be using that against you, and be prepared to get into some diplomatic battles as well as militaristic ones.
Yes, they will even support other people's wars as well if they really don't like you.
So they'll be supporting their allies, or even just going against yours just because they don't like you.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, and this one by iBanker. How does text and civic research work in teams and multiplayer? Will one player receive a bonus when another team member completes a tech or a civic?
So team in multiplayer is something that's not in the game right now because it's being worked on right now. It's one of the things we're going to talk about yet again. This is another tease for our talking about our roadmap to come at the end of the stream. We're not going to go into a lot of details on exactly how the team system is going to operate. Because it needs to be a little bit different in Civ 7 than it has in previous games. There are things like unique civic trees in Civ 7 that, it used to be shared civic and tech research. Well, like what happens when somebody has a unique civic tree and someone else doesn't? So we're working through how teams best fit into Civ 7. And as soon as that feature is ready to roll out, we'll be sharing a lot of information on it, probably have a stream on it, those kind of things.
Very cool, thank you. All right, and this one by Synth Icon Turtle. Will team mechanics change? But we just went over that, and so we'll have some more information about teams coming later. So, all right, it looks like you are starting to take the front in Mexico onto 3 different cities.
Yeah, I need to hurry up and get this ball moving before the Prussians arrive.
That was a very heavily promoted commander. That was cool to see.
Yeah, all my best commanders are way over here, which is, I guess, a very Napoleonic move here to send all your best units to distant lands.
Very cool. And how is the defense?
Are you sending your commanders into exile? Like, I mean, I've heard of that St. Helena is a beautiful island in the South Atlantic Ocean. If your commanders want to go there, it's fine with me.
So far, it seems...
I might vacation in Berlin. I don't know. We'll see.
Looks like you also have some chocolate of your own. Do you have any factories set up, just producing your own resources?
I do have factories, and they are giving me some benefits. Like this cotton is giving me production towards training land units, and I'm getting extra healing from my medicinal things here. So even though I'm very clearly focusing on a militaristic approach here, you really can't totally ignore the other aspects of the game.
And don't tell Tim that I just moved my land ship on top of his cotton. So
I need that cotton.
We'll keep that a secret. It doesn't pass.
I was
the
looking
sound
for
border.
a good target for him. And I think I found one.
All right, we have a question from Great Joe Foe. Does age progress and when crises start in single player depend on you or the AI players?
I'll let Tim answer this question since he set a lot of the system up exactly.
Yeah, it's entirely based off of the age progress. So there are certain age progress thresholds. This is a modern age, so we don't have a crisis in this to show you. But at specific age progress thresholds, the crisis will start. And every player's advancement along these milestone paths communally increase. The first player to get to each of these milestones will communally increase the shared age progress.
So the age progress is something that is just for uniform across the entire game, and then actions that any player does will like put it into that pool.
Correct.
And that will make the crisis trigger across the world. But some of the crises are very interesting. Like Tim and I worked together on the plague crisis, and the plague crisis does this whole evaluation across the world of what city is sort of the ripest target for plague to hit. It like has the most trade routes coming into it. It might have crazy overpopulation, those kind of things. So the plague system does evaluations. That's where plague starts to break out. Plague will spread, especially along those trade routes. So it's a whole simulation that happens within the same kind of system that we use for floods and storms and volcanic eruptions. So it's very cool. And yeah, you'll have to think about like sort of how your empire is set up, whether, like port cities can be very, very vulnerable to plague. And even if you have an empire stretched across an ocean, that plague can be transmitted back across that ocean because the trade ships going back and forth are going to carry that disease with them.
Yeah, the plague one was probably my favorite to be testing as well, and because not only did it impact the cities, but it impacted your units and military, and it was very, very cool to engage with. So, speaking of military, how is building up for?
So I have 𝐂𝐤𝐯 in A World of Hurt, I think, here.
Okay, so you're taking down Tim's only friend.
Yes. as a sort of a step along the path to getting closer to the heart of France. So the Stukas are part of my attacks, but I'm actually at the point now where I can have a couple land units that can move in directly.
And so the Stuka are better at more of attacking ground units, while the bomber would necessarily be the best at attacking an actual settlement. But the Stuka clearly can still engage and get that damage in. Yeah, it looks like they still have that defending soldier there, holding the line.
Yeah, but he's going to go down next turn, almost certainly. I do also have my small navy is going to try to at least take out some of Tim's resources along the coast here. And I have a larger army that's also just slowly making their way across the continent to where they can start to inflict some
Yeah, it looks like you got a
pain and suffering on him.
thick forest there with rivers blocking, so it's a
Yeah.
slow movement.
It is, but
to-
hopefully we'll just pop out and surprise him.
Very cool. I love the look of Leon there, that city.
Here's where I have his.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, this is the distant lands settlement you have closer to
Right,
the,
that
the
I
front of his
earned
invasion.
as sort of a prize in a previous war. So I'm just taking my units here and sort of moving them through the back lines of his force just to put a little pressure on him, make it so he can't reinforce his front lines with Mexico. They're not going to be particularly effective, but maybe I'll be able to distract him a little bit.
A little bit of a hit and run warfare there.
Yeah.
So speaking of, how are you feeling over here on the front for against Jose?
The pressure is on. We've got one district holding on still in Mexico City, and Guadalajara is pretty close to following as well. And then I think once I've kind of broken through, these other settlements will fall in pretty short order. But
Yeah, that'll be a lot of reinforcements once you
Oh.
take that first run.
yeah, I haven't looked over here in a minute, and this isn't going particularly well. Let's see what we can do. He's exposed his commander here. I can send an air attack on that.
Yeah, so that's something really cool that planes will be able to do is they can get the attacks from just little slip-ups like that. Yeah, and that'll bring
that
down
was
the
a mistake
commander.
on my part, for sure. I didn't realize he had quite that many fighters. He had mentioned he was building fighters, but I hadn't
He's
seen
been
evidence of them.
really building fighters.
Yeah.
So again, that's it seems like you might want to get some of those trench. What are they? The trench fighters, because that is a lot of units coming in. But you got a pretty strong city there, Leon. There's a choke point by the city center there because of the Grand Canyon that you spawned right next to. So it might be tough to just have land units push up through that. And there's the Imperial Guard earning their name.
𝐂𝐤𝐯 has been captured.
Oh,
I've actually
𝐂𝐤𝐯's
earned
fallen.
some points on the ideology path. I'm still not as far along as Tim is, but I'm only 2 points behind. So I'm at least a player in the military victory arena.
So, and that should have given you a great work with Frederick's
It does.
ability.
So I am playing with, Frederick has two personas. The persona I'm playing is the Baroque persona, and he gains a great work when I capture a settlement for the first time, and gain an infantry unit when I construct a culture building. I'm not constructing many culture buildings right now, but let's look at our great work screen, and we can see that we have received an ancient sword that we
very
somehow
cool.
pulled out of the archives at 𝐂𝐤𝐯, and we are taking that back home too.
Very cool.
Because Frederick appreciates great elements of culture like that, and so if he's going to find them in the city he conquers, he'll take them back home with him.
Okay, very cool. And I found out while playing this, you also can, if you exchange settlements in a peace deal, that'll still also trigger. So I was at war, and me and the person I was at war with, we asked for peace, and we swapped two little town settlements,
Okay.
and I managed to get an extra relic from that. So that's very cool. So it looks like the main city of Mexico is about to fall. So coming up in this next turn, hopefully you'll be able to grab that.
Yeah, and I was just realizing that, I was mentioning the French Empire invading distant lands, but the French Empire did invade Mexico. That did actually happen.
That did. That did
So
happen.
this is history playing out here.
I'm not sure if
the
it was
old
with
history.
tanks and
Yeah, not so much.
Imperial Guard, but yeah, very cool. And so we're talking about the Imperial Guard. They're being used on the offense over here, but at home they're gonna see a lot of use with that ranged attack they have that you were mentioning, where they'll be able to sit in the city and be defensive but also have a really high defense strength from when they're attacked and can shoot out of it, which is very cool. So we got a whole bunch of combat going on here. So how about we zoom in to get some cool
I will
close-up
say
action?
the fact that the combat sort of persists after you've attacked is just it's very cinematic. It's just a beautiful game to look at. We have conquered Mexico City, has fallen. If we look at our progress, that brought us all the way up to the first milestone very rapidly.
And that is a lot of units that you just freed up to go help out with the rest of the front.
That was definitely the hardest part of this here. That was a difficult terrain to work in, but
still a race against the clock, though. You need to hold on to Paris. You got a couple cities you can lose at home, but as long as you hold on to Paris for a while, you'll be able to sneak in with an explosive victory. Yeah, so it looks like Ed's sneaking some stuff around over here, so let's take a peek at this.
Yeah, I actually decided that I might want to take some naval forces over to the other continent and at least see if they can slow down the demise of Jose Rizal's empire.
That's fair.
I just spent, I had quite a big war chest of gold, and so I spent a few, I have some island cities sort of over in that direction, so I spent some money on some battleships that way. But I think the main event is what can I do, especially with my Stukas, now that Kumasi's fallen, to have them redeployed against the French troops here. So let's check out their attack range, and they can get to these lead French units.
And these are your unique Stuka here? Very cool.
You can actually, I can hear them in Tim's game making attacks.
I saw one just get shot down.
But yes, he's got enough fighters that they're not, one came back damaged, I think one got shot down. So
it looks like you got a bonus of culture there when you took out one of those units. It was 17 culture.
Yeah, I think that was my culture, actually.
Yeah, I think Tim got that.
Yeah, for the Napoleon bonus.
Very cool. All right, we're going to take another question. This is by Lots of Pyro. Are there natural disasters, like in the Gathering Storm expansion from Civ VI?
There absolutely are. We haven't seen one in our game here yet, but the same floods, storms, volcanic eruptions are definitely there. The plague system that we were just talking about 15 minutes ago, that runs through the same set of disaster mechanics and logic as some of the other ones. So.
Now, I think you actually do have a notification. Is that a disaster notification?
Actually, it's true that there is a river that has flooded. Oh, the river
wow.
leading up to Dresden. I actually...
Yeah, here we are.
Well, I thank whoever asked me that question, because I might not have noticed that.
I believe it was Lots of Pyro, which is very fitting, because now the city is burning.
Yeah, so I will actually... the good thing is it's not usually too expensive to repair things, so I can go ahead and do that.
You're making a lot of gold from
but
all
that was
the resources
like the
you have.
stock exchange and some other important buildings that went out when that river flooded. So
very fun. All right, and this one is by Thigru. When transitioning from antiquity to exploration in multiplayer, will the new world be populated by players, by AI? How does that work out?
So we always set up the game so that the new world is populated, even in antiquity, when you can't see it. The distant lands is what we call it. And so you start up the exploration age game, they're probably, in the default setting where you've got maybe 4 people on the homeland, you'll have 2 AI opponents over there who've set up probably pretty decent strength empires over there. But there'll be land to settle in as well, so it is a little bit reminiscent of the Terra maps that we've had of old. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun to see what your opportunities are over there in the distant lands.
I remember when we were testing that old Terra map, and the first time we tested it, we were super excited to get over and try out to see the distant lands, but there was always one player who would just, instead of picking a naval civ, would lock in like Rome and just try and take over the home continent, which was always very funny. So that was usually Carl, but
Damn you, Carl.
So it looks like we are now seeing the first engagements on homelands.
Yeah, the outskirts of Lyon are facing a Prussian.
Let's zoom in and see some of the continuous combat here.
Yeah,
And
we've got it back and forth between my rifle infantry. They seem to have a machine gun in the middle of their midst, and they're trying to take down this artillery piece.
Yeah, and reminder that continuous combat is how you can see how flanking works as well, because when you pick that engagement direction, that will be where that unit is locked down in engagement, and so then the furthest flanking side you attack from will have stronger bonuses. So not only is it a very cool aesthetic choice where we can watch the battles play out in real time, but we can see that cool flank of like the gameplay effects of flanking. And there is a massive naval ship sailing from your lake out of a navigable river. Probably my favorite addition to the game. So yeah, how are you feeling about your chances right now, Ed? Since now that you're engaged on the homeland, but
I do feel like I have Tim on the run here, and that he definitely is not going to threaten my cities in any kind of fashion. It's all just a matter of the clock here. So I am 73 Railroad Tycoon points shy right now, so that's about 5 turns. So we're getting there. But, you know, can Jose Rizal's empire survive for a few more turns? That's not a sure thing either here.
well, I just heard that the polls have flipped again, where it is, I think it was 53 for Tim and 47 for Ed. But that was about 40 minutes ago, so we'll get an update on that coming shortly. Now, Tim, how do you feel about your chances right now? You just scored a major victory. It's all right if you lose a couple settlements, just as long as you hold on to the 1 or 2 that'll be able to run that project. So you still got a fighting chance, but it's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, I can't disagree with Ed's assessment here that this is it's gonna be just trying to race to a victory here. Oh yeah, a settlement is under threat. I agree.
Which one is it telling you? There are choices.
That's true.
Oh, no, that's that.
They all
accommodation.
feel like they're, I've got my dog fighting accommodation.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Out, so, but we're looking pretty. The military victory can flip very quickly if I manage to get into a good situation. You make very rapid progress in a short period of time.
Look at all that XP. Very cool. Yeah, let's zoom in again on this. Let's see some of the city siege.
Yeah, at this point I'm just throwing units into here. Some of you may not survive, but I'm okay with that. Because the commanders have the experience, some of these units are a little bit more disposable.
Very cool. Now let's go ahead and take another look at the home front. The invasion going, it's pushing into the cities now. It's absolute chaos on all sides. A true
Lyon
world war.
has 2 defensible districts. I'm going to have to take both those out in order to take it. I'm still just on the outskirts of the city, but I was able to take out his field artillery that I had been fighting with there and advance forward. I don't have a ton of artillery on my own, so the defensible districts could be a problem. I'm going to have to probably purchasing some Stukas and putting, or actually some bombers, and putting them in my squadron commanders, so I have a better chance of taking down siege defenses is what I need to be focusing on here.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to need to move quick. I just completed the 2nd milestone here. Managed to capture another settlement, and we can see that I'm only just shy of, I'm going to need 2 more to get into nuke territory here.
2 more settlements or 2 more points?
2 more settlements.
Yeah.
And just a reminder for everyone that we will be going over the roadmap for what players can expect after the game releases on February 11th. So stay tuned for later when we get into that, once we finish up the game. Now, for those who are just now tuning in, welcome to our live stream. We have a multiplayer game going on where it is Tim and Ed playing head-to-head. Ed is currently Frederick of Prussia and is trying to get the economic victory and is pushing his advantage against Napoleon of France, who is being played by Tim, who's trying to get his military victory. It is a race against time for Tim right now, and it looks like you are selecting to make a lot of units in that production queue.
It's all units at this point. We don't really care about buildings right now. Get a little bit of extra production in Paris when we do actually unlock them. Oh, that's a lot of units there as well. Oh, and he's taken out my rail station. Yeah, so if you pillage the rail network, that can really hobble my ability to maneuver.
Yeah, taking that rail station's a big one. So that'll disconnect that settlement from the rail network.
Right, so this Guard Imperial unit has been sort of isolated and surrounded, so it's looking grim for them. But hold on, hold the line, Guard Imperial.
Now, he'd still have to push through Nancy's right there, and there is at Lyon, there's a major choke point with the Grand Canyon that I think will be, I think that'll prove a tough defense, but the main question is less about if he's going to be able to take you out, and more of the race against that economic victory.
Absolutely.
So yes, once you finish the legacy path for the economic victory, Ed, for the economic legacy path, you then will unlock that victory. Do you want to go into the details a little bit?
Yeah, we just talked a little bit about how I would be getting a great banker unit in my capital. The great banker has to visit the other world capitals and get each of those nations to agree to join in and also participate in the World Bank. Now, the agreeing isn't something that you go to that player and like, if I asked him if he's going to agree, he would never agree. It's just a matter of, in the game, you have to spend gold and influence. And if you have enough of that, if you're really that humongous economic powerhouse, then you can just get them to buy into the World Bank. So basically, it's going to take me I'm estimating about 6 turns to go around and get it. I might be a little bit, I'm not spending all my gold just in case I get to that point so that I have some gold and some influence to spend there. I might be underestimating what the cost of that is, just because, you know, I have both Xerxes and Napoleon who aren't friendly with me, and it's going to cost me more to get them to buy into the World Bank if they're not friendly. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but I'm hopeful I've got this set up just right.
Yeah, well, so the cost of the sort of capstone victory type actions and projects is reduced the more legacy points you have of that type from previous ages. So this is an advanced start, so we're not going to have any advantages or disadvantages, but if previously I had been following a military path and gotten all my military legacy points, I would have a leg up on completing the Manhattan Project and the Operation Ivy project in Modern. So your progress along the legacy paths in the previous ages will help you win a final victory of a certain type, but you can win any of them. It's just going to be a little bit harder.
And now we have a question coming in from 𝐂𝐢𝐯. Can certain victory conditions be turned off, like in Civ VI? For example, would you be able to just keep military and economic victory on while turning off a culture victory?
It's a very good question, and we absolutely anticipate as our game is out there and people are giving feedback on us, we're going to want to be spending time making adjustments to victories, allowing you to mix and match different combinations. I think we're going to be talking a little bit about what a live event is going to be at the end of the stream today, and I think that's a great place for us to try out new types of victories and see whether or not some of them are popular and maybe make those be alternatives. So victories is a huge opportunity for us to keep the game fresh, to introduce new ways to play through the different ages, and toggling them on and off, that probably certainly going to be, or choosing specifically which ones you like. I think that's going to be a part of it. It's not in the game right now, but it's very much in the forefront of what we're thinking about.
Very cool. Right, and next we have from Sullivan Gold, what will be the max multiplayer lobby on release?
So it does depend a little bit. The multiplayer count's a little bit lower on Switch,
Okay.
but assuming that you're not talking about Switch, you can play an 8-player multiplayer here in the modern age, in the game that Tim and I are showing. Because of the distant land mechanics and the fact that players might want to take that antiquity game and roll it over into exploration, we want everybody to have the chance to have treasure fleets and take advantage of the exploration age mechanics. Right now, it's set up so that if you start a antiquity or an exploration game, the count is set at 5. Well, we know people are going to want to play with even more people than that, so we have work underway already to get it so that we'll be supporting 8 in any configuration pretty soon here.
Very cool. Thank you, thank you. We have another by Da Wasabi HD. Is there a tech to reveal the whole map?
Yes, the
Yes.
satellite tech will do that.
Let's go ahead and look at that in the tree.
So there's not really a tech to do it, but if you complete that launch satellite project that is part of the scientific legacy path, that will reveal the whole map.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about the other legacy paths. We've been focusing on economic and victory. So what is that scientific legacy path, and what would that victory be looking like? I know, Ed, you have an edge on science here, although you're focusing on the econ. So what would...
So you'll see on the tree that there are these light bulbs that represent key achievements along the scientific path. Since I have been through flight, I could have done a transoceanic flight. I think I actually have to get that point. If I go check my
I believe,
science progress,
we got that one.
I've done that one. But the other items are ones that I haven't quite gotten to. 3 more turns till I get to aerodynamics, then I can break the sound barrier. And then in rocketry, I can launch a satellite. That will finish the legacy path, so it'll make me eligible for the victory, and the victory is the staff space flight. So both of those are on that rocketry tech at the end of the tree.
Very cool. And then for the culture, I know Napoleonic France has a strong edge in culture. You are focusing on military, but what would that culture victory look like?
Right, if I went down this and I was able to use my explorers to go out and find artifacts from a different age and then put them into my great work slots and my museums, then I would be able to complete that legacy path, and then the capstone for that is to hold the World's Fair, which is a very expensive wonder that you'll need to build in one of your settlements, and then you will win.
And it looks like you're about to take one of these final settlements here.
I'm very close, but don't quite have... I think I'm going to need another turn to take this one, and then I'm going to need to swing down this coast here.
Now, we just got some interesting info on YouTube. It is 53 Tim and 47 Ed, but then on Twitch, it's 72 Ed, and what would that be? 28 Tim.
Well, I think these YouTubers know what's up. So that's
So it's Team YouTube versus Team Twitch right now.
yeah.
And so will this last settlement get your complete the legacy path for you, so you can start working on Sun and
One
Death?
short. I'm gonna need one more, but I might be able to be sneaky and take out some of these coastal settlements. I bet these are pretty lightly guarded as well. But we'll see. He's got a long road to Paris.
Yes,
I
long road,
might have time.
but all roads lead to Paris.
And I was able to use my rail network to very quickly move people from Marseille to Bordeaux over here.
Now, I am
slow down
45
this assault.
points from finishing Railroad Tycoon. And I believe I've got 15 factory points per turn, 3, 9. Oof, I need one more factory good. I need to somehow increase the factory capacity in Hamburg.
Could you buy a Oh, I know. A port increases the resource.
Yes. It's a really
slots.
expensive build here, but I do that. Then Hamburg can produce more chocolate a turn.
There we are.
And I can actually give them these other resources too. Let's give them a little extra happiness.
Chocolate truffles? Is Hamburg connected to your... Oh, those resources also might not be connected to your internal trade network.
That's what's
True,
going on.
true.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I should be able to finish that in 3 turns now, and then it's on to the World Bank.
All right, 3 turns, and then onto the World Bank, which I believe you said would also take about 3 turns.
No, it's going to take me, I figure that's going to take me probably 6 turns, because I'm going
Okay,
to
one
move
to
to
move,
a capital,
one to
one
establish.
to spend the gold. And
Yeah.
So I should be 9 turns maybe out.
Okay. Do you think you could finish out those projects in 9 turns?
It's going to be close. Paris has a lot of production, but the Manhattan Project is a pretty significant undertaking. So we'll see. It's going to be pretty close. I'm just realizing if I can put enough pressure on Jose after taking this out, he might give me another settlement in a peace deal, which
I see.
That might be
get
your-
me
yes.
what I need. So we'll see.
How many settlements is he down to?
He's got,
He's still got 5, so yeah,
Yeah.
he easily could decide that that's worth peace for him.
but
Yeah.
he's got, I'm at -3 war support with him, and they do consider current war support in peace deals. So he knows that world opinion is on his side pretty heavily here.
Man, look at those attacks. Do you think we'll be able to capture
Oh,
it?
50-50. Get in there. You can do this. No. You can do, no.
Oh, no,
Just-
next turn.
These coin flips are not going my way. Let's protect my commander
Looking
here.
close. All right, the district defenses are now destroyed, so you should be able to move a unit in there.
Yeah, I need to take this airfield though. Oh, this tank is blocked. Well, can we? Maybe we can carve a path for my armor to cut through here. Maybe.
Now, we're talking about with the home front. Would you be able to utilize someone else's rail network against them, or is a rail network an independent system for is it used independently?
Once
by
you've
civilization?
captured cities and the rail stations are intact, and yeah, it can become part. It would have to be part of your empire, though. I can't go on to towns that are controlled by another player and try to use their network.
Oh, and there I have managed to capture. So let's see. This is the moment of truth. Will you accept?
Here we are.
Oh, he will. Lisbon. Your ally has betrayed you.
Oh man, and that's the ideology legacy path finished. So now you can start working into
And I have
building
that notification on my
big
screen.
bomb.
Napoleon Revolutionary has completed ideology.
I agree. That is a beautiful proposition. Jose.
Look at him smiling at you. J Riz. So now to achieve that victory, you need to work up and just get
Yes.
a couple different projects, and then you can launch the bomb.
Yeah, so we're going to, what are we working on here? An aerodrome, we don't care about that anymore. We are going straight into establishing the Manhattan Project here.
Wonderful, get that up there.
And we
I
will
won't
get
say
as
how
much
many
production
turns
as
that
we
is
can.
out loud to keep Ed on his toes.
Yeah, we will let the audience see that we are not too far away from, well, that's step 1
Yep.
of completing it.
Do you have a heavy bomber somewhere?
I do not. I have not. I'm behind technologically, so I won't be able to use my nukes on you until I have a plane capable of carrying them. I don't have sufficient technology to do that. But I will potentially be able to complete the development of the bomb.
And that in itself is winning.
Right, and that in itself can be winning. Even though I don't quite have a delivery mechanism ready to go just yet, these are all things that we're sort of working on. Let's get those truffles in there.
All right, and how is your sieges going
I have
down?
Marseille is in a lot of hurt just from my battleships. Lyon, I've been trying to take it out with some of the bombers that I built. But he still has some pesky fighters in that area, and so that has been going a little bit less effectively. And Bordeaux here, where I, reached the outskirts, had the train station for a while. I've lost control of the train station, but
took it back.
Yeah, so I don't think that one's under much threat right now. It's Lyon and Marseille that I'm threatening to take.
You have
from.
a very advanced, a small but powerful navy right there.
Yeah, and they're getting better through some of these promotions I'm getting on that fleet commander. So yeah, Dresden's just been cranking out one naval unit after another to try to exert pressure down this coast here.
Pretty cool. Let's see. All right, I believe we'll be having some questions we'll be able to check out soon. But until then, we can see remobilizing those planes, getting them to the front lines. Let's zoom in on some of those battleships just so we can get a cool look at them. Yeah, look at that. Look at the big smokestacks. That's awesome. Is that a little navigable river tile there?
Yeah, it is.
You can sail into?
Yes, so I can do damage to all sorts of, pretty much reach any tile in Marseille and do damage to it because the navigable river is giving me access. And Tim has no navy that is, at least not one that's making an appearance over on this front.
All right, we have a question coming in from Skopkin. Is the Manhattan Project restricted in any way by your science and tech tree progress? Can you start it, or can you just start it as soon as you finish the ideology path?
Yeah, you can start it as soon as you finish the ideology path, as I did, but you won't be able to use nukes on other people unless you have researched those heavy bombers right now.
And which one's the heavy bombers? That's the aero...
Yeah, that's in aerodynamics, which I'm working my way towards. I'm 2 techs away from. I need mobilization, and then I can get aerodynamics.
Yeah. So you can start working on the projects as soon as possible and getting the bombs. It's the delivery mechanism that takes time.
Right.
Yeah, maybe, well, if you weren't at war, then I guess some science buildings would be beneficial.
Right, to help me out here. Absolutely. We'll make you a fort town.
Yeah, so a really cool demonstration of the town system and the specialization of towns. So a fort town will increase its defense and buff the healing of units from inside that town, which is very cool.
And we're going to hustle as many of these units as we possibly can off of this front, pack them up into my commanders for very convenient movement of large numbers of units. And we're going to get them into trying to help me out as fast as I can here.
All right, we have a question from Magical Euro. This is the first Twitch stream he's been able to get into. What is the absolute craziest thing you can do in this game that you cannot do in Civ VI?
I think the craziest thing that I have seen in any of our playtesting is some of the battles we've had over treasure fleets in the Exploration Age, and that doesn't exist in Civ 6 at all. Especially in multiplayer during the Exploration Age, you think, Exploration Age people are just like sailing around the world and discovering stuff. But no, it's been knocked down, drag it out, military, and it's cool. I like fighting with tall ships, and we've had big fleets full of treasure swapping hands back and forth during the same turn between different players. So some of those things have been really fun.
I've been a part of some major naval battles going on about swapping around treasure fleets. One of my things that I think is crazy is when I mentioned earlier, being able to stack the different civilizations' abilities. And so you can get some really, really crazy scenarios, and as well as when you mix match different leaders. And I'm not going to get into too many of the ones I've found because I want the community to find them and get to see them for themselves. But there are some really awesome combos to engage with.
Yeah, there was a multiplayer game we were having just kind of for fun where we just decided that everybody was going to be America. It was America versus America versus America. And we had Harriet Tubman America versus Lafayette America versus Ben Franklin America. And what was really interesting about it is that even though we were all America, each of us got different precursor civilizations generated. And just because of those subtle differences, the traditions that we inherited, we had 3 very different flavors of America, actually. We had like a much more economically focused America. We ended up with a slightly more scientific America and like a slightly more diplomatic America. And they actually felt like distinct, even though in a multiplayer setting we were playing, you know, what is ostensibly a mirror match. So with in terms of civs, so that's like a really cool new thing, and that was definitely a sort of aha moment when that happened.
When the vision comes together. Yeah, it's very cool.
Leon, it's looking a little grim over here.
I've been doing some work near the Grand Canyon there.
Yeah.
And if you get a couple more...
We may want to notice that
I
the
see.
Railroad Tycoon, the trains are chugging home to the stations in Berlin.
I just got that notification in my game, so...
And
Now we have him.
so there is a great banker
Marvelous.
in Berlin.
So where are you sending
so-
him first?
He can travel to cities, and after he's traveled there, then he can do his job to establish the World Bank. So he actually has movement this turn, right after I've done that. So you notice that all the capitals are lit up. Let's see where Jose Rizal's capital in exile is, and send him over there. And so that consumes his movement for the turn. And then next turn, he should get a new unit action to establish the World Bank there.
Now, do you just need to be in any tile on the capital or the city center? or-
I'm hoping that any tile is okay. Otherwise, I made a placement mistake, and we'll see if that comes
You're
back.
also researching the last tech, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I have started on rocketry as well. I would have to go back if I wanted to try to pursue the scientific victory and go and finish up those projects. But that is one cool thing. Sometimes you might want to pursue 2 victories, and then it's just whichever final victory, culmination, capstone moment you can get to first. I've had that situation in several of my games I've been playing where I finished 2 legacy paths. I'm like, well, what's going to be faster, Great Banker or launching a rocket? And you get there and you do the math and figure it out. And sometimes it's not even the one you expect.
Yeah.
So it can be useful to pursue more than one for sure.
And especially when you're in previous ages, because if you're in exploration and antiquity and you plan on playing that full game, you want to. I really promote the idea of going and getting as many of the legacy paths as you can, because you'll get bonuses into the next age. However, once you do get into modern, then yes, you get the sudden death victories where it's important to focus on making sure you can achieve something there. So. And so now that we are approaching the victories, why don't we talk about how the nukes can be used? Are there different types of nukes? How do we do that delivery process? Let's go into the details there.
Right, and hopefully we'll get to there. So once I have the Manhattan Project, I will unlock a project in the city's called Build a Nuclear Weapon. I need an aerodrome with a heavy bomber in it. And once I complete that project, it'll load the bomb into that heavy bomber. And on the Aerodrome Commander, you'll see this button here where it says WMD Strike. And I currently have no available warhead. But once I have a warhead in my Empire, I'll be able to click on that and try to strike a tile. His fighters will be able to intercept it, so I do need to account for that. But I can use a nuke anywhere I want. I could try to nuke these forces over here. It'll irradiate the tiles around it and
So you could
do
set up
heavy damage.
a blocker with the radiation.
Right. So that's one way to use the nuclear weapons. And then the other part of it is that once I complete the Manhattan Project, I'll have a second project available, which will be called Operation Ivy. And completing that will just instantly win me the game. So that will be, I've created, I clearly have a nuclear superiority at that point that I've demonstrated. You sort of do a test, a nuclear test that sort of proves to the world that it's a bad idea to mess with you from this point out. And that is sort of how this military victory will come to a close.
Since you finished out your turn, let's zoom in on the Manhattan Project Wonder so we can go ahead and see what that looks like under
building
construction.
out over here. We're getting there. It's in progress. I've got, well, don't tell Ed how many turns we have left here, but let's visually see how many turns we have left.
I did peek once, but I'm not going to look for updates. So
You got to do the.
it's nip and tuck for sure.
Get a box or a blanket.
I think the fact that your Air Force is under tech is going to be my saving grace.
that is definitely my Achilles heel. We'll see what we can do. Maybe can we do anything to speed this up even? Not really. That'll help. Every little bit counts.
I've been trying to pillage some of your infrastructure as I get to your cities.
I
take down some of your
just
science buildings.
We ended on.
It looks like we had the score victory on.
So we had the score victory
the
on.
age to a close as we have reached
So
100.
Yeah, we weren't
age
paying attention to
progress.
our
The age progress. We're
meter.
so focused on the victories.
So that brings up a good point. There is another victory condition, which is the score victory.
It has to be there in case you ever get to the situation where you're in a stalemate position.
Yes.
And nobody is able to win.
Yeah,
Right,
so,
and
this will be
the
when
score victory in Civilization VII is a little bit different than how score victories have worked in the past. It's the accumulated number of legacy points you've had across the whole game. And so
Napoleon takes the win because Napoleon has gotten the most amount of legacy points across the game.
Let's see. I think it was my cultural. Yes,
Yeah,
my cultural points just barely.
So let's bring up this screen here that shows those points.
Yeah, so
Yes.
saved by the bell.
Oh, so narrowly.
So who was it? YouTube that was Team Tim, or was it Twitch that was Team Tim?
So because of the age progress meter, you won. I think the next thing that would have triggered was I should have been 5 turns away from winning with the Great Banker.
Oh, man.
Yes.
And then I'm not sure how many turns you were out from getting a heavy bomber, but probably
Yeah,
like
it was
10 turns.
Probably, because I would need to do the operate. Yeah, it was probably, well, we're on quick speed, so it might have only been like 5 turns.
Okay.
It was very, very close.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Tim gets it. I'll congratulate him here.
Unexpected end there.
Well, like we said, we hadn't played this out before,
Yeah,
so
that is true.
We knew all about what was going on with the legacy paths, but we ended up not focusing as hard as what the age progress meter was doing.
And
that is potentially a valid strategy in a multiplayer game to push the age progress as fast as you can in order, if you see somebody who's just about to win one of the sudden death victories, if you have a point advantage and you because you've spread yourself out across a bunch of different victories, that can be a very valid approach.
I wasn't looking at the math, but obviously I hit that final Railroad Tycoon milestone. You hit the final
and that pushed us.
Military victory milestone. All those things were pushing the progress
And
up.
this goes to a point where if we were talking about not looking at the science victory, not doing those projects because you're fully focused on the econ, but now we can see that going in and pursuing the other victories can help in situations
And
like
if
this.
people feel like, well, we don't want score victory to be beyond, we really want it to be a sudden death victory, we showed the settings at the very beginning of the stream where you can go with the long age. The long age is it pushes the number of points you need to finish an age way back. And so that gives you plenty of space for the sudden death victories to kick in.
And conversely, the abbreviated ages is going the other way. And when we've played with those in multiplayer, that almost always ends in a score victory. And so you can sort of skew your preferred way to play.
And this is something that, as we get more data in, as we get feedback from the community, we'll be tuning all these numbers. it could be that it might be good to have a little bit more leeway before age progress, or maybe only in modern age. Is that the case? So we'll be paying a lot of attention, which I think is a good segue,
Yes,
Sean.
perfect. I was about to pick up on that one. So great game, and now we're going to go ahead and talk about what players can be expecting past the release of the game on February 11th and what that future roadmap has in store for us. So Ed, if you would like to take it away.
So this is our detailed roadmap graphic. You will see this both here on the stream right now, but it is also being posted online with the new dev diary that's coming out, which is talking about victories, like we've talked about a lot today. But if you can't remember all those details and you want to see it in print, that's right there on the victories dev diary. And one of the key things about the roadmap is it is composed as you go through month by month, like this is broken up from left to right. You'll see on the top half of the screen things that you get if you have one of the content collections coming to you because you've ordered either the deluxe edition or the founders edition, or you go out and at some point in time decide to buy those separately. But we also have very, very important free updates to anyone who owns the game at whatever level they've purchased it. Tim is leading up the charge on those updates, so he can talk about them a little bit. But so let's look first at that early March block and talk about what's coming with the Crossroads of the World pack. Now, the Crossroads of the World pack is broken into two releases, an early March release and a late March release. That's not a pattern that people should lock in on. Some of our collections will be broken up into 3, 4 releases, those types of things. So it's not always going to be 2, but that's just how Crossroads of the World works. And in that first release, we have some exciting new civs. We have some B-roll that we can show in terms of what those civs look like. And we have a cool leader. And because these civs and leaders, I think we're seeing the Carthage.
Right here.
So actually, before I say anything more, I'm going to let Tim talk a little bit about what's cool about Carthage.
Yeah, Carthage is definitely becoming one of my favorite Antiquity civs to play. It's a very unique experience. If you were a fan of Venice in Civ V and that gameplay, this is sort of a spiritual successor in a lot of ways. And I think people are really going to enjoy playing them.
And so that's an important point to make, is these DLC civs were done after we had the base game pretty well figured out and settled in. It's always easier, and we've proven this time and time again on Civ V and Civ VI, and it's certainly proving true again on Civ VII, that once you really understand the game and what is important for getting ahead in the game or succeed, then it starts becoming easier to design civs and leaders that break the game rules in interesting ways. So Tim mentioned Venice and Civ V. That was maybe one of our best examples of that. But there are other examples like the Maori in Civ VI. Yeah, very fun. And so, yes, sometimes people are a little sad that civs get held out until DLC, but sometimes they end up being much more interesting and cooler. So I'm really excited that Great Britain is in this pack. I know there's been a lot of consternation out in the community as to how could they not have Great Britain in the base game? And Great Britain is probably one of the most near and dear to my heart civilizations. It's the country that I visited more than any other foreign country. I've actually already been to Great Britain in 2025. So I'm not going to let Great Britain fall by the wayside. There's going to be plenty of English, British, whatever content from the British Isles before Civ VII is said and done. And it's cool because we actually had a little bit of trouble with England in Civ VI. We had to redesign them a few times. This time we've had the chance to sit back, see what the base game looks like, then design Britain. So I'm really excited by the British design and also the British leader that we're introducing here in this same content collection.
Yep, and with that we'll have a video that we'll be able to play for y'all right now.
To use and apply the language of science, we must fully appreciate, feel, seize the unseen.
So Ada Lovelace is our new scientific leader. So we have leaders who are great in diplomacy like Machiavelli, We have leaders who are great in culture. I think Catherine the Great is one of our examples of that this time. But Ada Lovelace is one of our premier science civs. And she's sort of taken the science gameplay in a brand new direction. She reminds me of 𝐂𝐢𝐯 from the Leader Pass from Civ VI, where there's like a system that you don't usually engage with in a deep fashion. And all of a sudden the leader comes along who's really good at that system. And all of a sudden that's how you play the game. And it feels like a very fresh, unique experience. So we won't tell you exactly how Ada works right now. But we've had a ton of fun playing with her and trying her out recently. Now, a couple more details here on what you're seeing on the roadmap. One is there's been some question about, well, these new civs that are coming in the collections, do they get their own associated wonders, or are they sort of supposed to use the 4 wonders that are part of the pack as theirs? And they absolutely do get their own associated wonders that aren't listed as part of the content. That's just part of the Civilization package that you get these days. So the other thing we wanted to focus on is what's going on sort of on the bottom half of these of this roadmap slide with the free content updates. And you'll notice that we have some things labeled as major updates and some things as regular updates. That really just has to do with whether it's the first update within a collection, which we're going to like have a little bit more fanfare around. But we're not necessarily assuming that one update is going to have more fixes than the other updates. We're just going to be fixing as much stuff as fast as we possibly can and patching things up and balancing things. Tim's doing a great job leading the charge there. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit about how these events work and how things in the events might see their way into the game later.
Right, so the first event will be this Natural Wonder Battle, which the events are a lot like if you've been playing the events that are ongoing in Civ VI right now that just sort of wrapped up. Those are going to continue into Civilization VII. So those will be sort of limited time events that you can participate in, like this Natural Wonder Battle. And then those will, not always, but sometimes have content or things about them that get sort of shed into the base game after they're done. So they're both a way for us to try some things out and see how they go, and a way to keep adding free content and updates into the game for everyone. And so as an example here, we're going to be adding these new natural wonders like the Bermuda Triangle for everyone, and having this Natural Wonder Battle event. And then in the Geographic Society in the Modern Age that we just played through, we'll be sort of integrating natural wonder gameplay into that as well. So that's sort of an example of what type of thing you can expect moving forward there.
And I think for the final thing that we want to touch on today is we want to talk about some of the bigger, chunkier updates that we have planned. We don't have an exact timing. We won't see them on the roadmap specifically. But if you go to the dev diary that's been released, there are 4 or 5 items listed there as like our near-term priorities for things that we want to focus on getting in the game as quickly as we can. Some of them already came up during our discussion here. Team multiplayer came up in one of the questions. We want to let people know that Hot Seat is something that we're actively looking at how quickly we can get that out to everybody. Naming of settlements is a feature that is important for people to be able to customize their empire, so we want to be able to do that. And we talked a little bit about how you might have some campaigns or some multiplayer campaigns where you want to play, this age and another age, or just a single age. Right now, when you start into a game, you pick your starting spot, but it's always going to run through the end of Modern, and we want to make it so players have more control over that they can have a single age experience that feels, like the same with victories like our Modern Age does now. And then I think, what was the last thing?
More map types and
Yes.
other map improvements and things like that are definitely a thing that we're looking at.
Yeah, so we want to make it so we'll take some feedback. We've seen feedback from the community already on our map types, so we have some adjustments. Some of the maps are a little blocky in some configurations. We can definitely make improvements there. One thing that's sort of a really good example of what we're doing in terms of listening to to community feedback and trying to get things into the game right away. So a lot of people have been making comments about the mini-map and how they feel a little bit discouraged that the mini-map is not quite as cool as it's been in previous games where you can see where your territory is. That's a change that we sort of turbocharged in priority.
Yeah.
And so I believe that there are some of our streamer friends who are out there who have copies of the game that already have an updated mini-map, and by the time everyone gets their hands on the game for the initial release, that updated mini-map is going to be available for everyone.
Yeah, they're all playing a more recent build than the one that you saw here.
Right.
And I believe talking about our streamer friends is a perfect segue into what we have next to talk about. So we will be having a Civ World Summit that'll be going on in the next few days, where we're going to have a whole bunch of different streamers coming together and having a head-to-head competitive multiplayer experience. And we have a video to show that off right now. All right, and that is everything we got for today's live stream. So thank you very much for joining us. Follow us on our socials for more information. And I am so excited for all of y'all to check out our game on February 11th on all platforms. I have been your host, Sean Wilson. Thank you very much, Ed, for joining us. And congratulations on your victory today, Tim.
Thank you. You did a great job.
So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.